What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast on this Friday, February 13th. I was actually going to mail it in this week entirely and continue with what has been kind of like a week off. I'm kind of, I'm hibernating a little bit, putting my head underground and just trying to catch up on some sleep and some other things around the house. And I'm going into like full dad mode, picking up the kids after school every day, taking them all around town. I mean, once the Bills season ends, I go into super dad mode. I know a lot of other media members can totally understand this, but some big news in the market over the last 24 hours got me thinking, I got to get on this thing with my good buddy, Brad Riter, who it is the week of Brad. I'm calling it that. It's going to be that because I have been waiting decades for the return of Brad Riter to the airwaves in Western New York, and that is coming in the form of next week. 1 to 3, One Bills Live is no longer on WGR, and for the next 2 weeks, it is going to be the Brad Riter and Tim Graham show, which I'm so pumped about. I want to bring you on. We'll talk about some Bill stuff. We'll get into some stuff today, but I just wanted to kind of chop it up with you, man. I'm super excited for you.
Well, I appreciate it. And like, as you're saying this, I'm trying to remember how many different iterations we've had of you and I having conversations. Like, I remember sitting after UB basketball games ended where it was you and me, and you may have even still been a student at the time, where we would sit and have conversations afterward, recorded into my, 4 mixers ago, my little Behringer thing that I had going on there. And I remember you coming in and sitting when I was doing the Trending Buffalo thing. We did that. I've had you on the radio show on LVL. I've had you on the podcast from here. I don't know that you've had me on. I'm sure you have, but it feels different. Like, usually I'm the one opening the thing up and you're sitting waiting for your chance to. And this time I'm just like, no, you talk, Matt. You carry it. We've done it a bunch of different ways.
The only time I've had you on was in a live show
at Santora's.
Yes, but we haven't done it this way.
You and Ryan.
I think we've actually talked about it a couple of times, but you even said it on WGR this morning. You haven't really been paying attention to the day to day, the week to week of everything, and so I don't know. I feel a little bit of pressure, like, oh, let me bring you back in. You're gonna have to study for the next 24 hours before you come on this show. But now, listen,
now I got to do it anyway.
You're gonna have to do it.
I'm in on the day-to-day with the Bills. It's the Sabres stuff that I have to get caught up on, and I will. The good news is they're not playing as I'm doing. So I could react to a game. I'm not out of it, but you know what it's like, man. Since having kids, I don't have 9 hours a week to dedicate to watching hockey, and I certainly didn't as they were missing the playoffs year after year after year after year. So I absolutely feel out of the loop, but I feel connected because Lindy Ruff is back as the coach. So it's still, that's my guy, that's my team. I could walk into a conversation with him at any time and pick up where we left off however many years ago. But as far as the excitement coming back in that arena, I'm pumped about it, but I haven't fully embraced it yet because I haven't had to. You've got kids playing sports. I've got kids. We have every night there's a practice or a game, whether it's basketball or baseball right now, because we've got indoor travel baseball stuff. There's something, and sometimes there's 4 of those. And then I'll get home at 9:30. There's 4 minutes left in a Sabres game. So, I just haven't attached myself to it. And my kids have grown up. My oldest is 13 years old. He's not been alive while the Sabres are in the playoffs. And he's 6'2" and 200 something pounds. That kid has never been alive for a Sabres playoff game. It's crazy. So, maybe I'm a bad Buffalo dad, having not raised my kids to this point on the Sabres, but I think it's a very good jumping in point right now that, hey, the team's good and dad's going on the radio for a couple of weeks. Let's go to a game. Let's watch a game on TV. Let's wake up in the morning knowing that they're playing tonight. Because I'm at that point where it's like, oh, they're playing tonight. Oh, that's cool. Maybe I'll watch it. I don't follow that team the way that I used to. And I used to know the ins and outs. I used to know every assistant coach on every team in the league. I knew who quarterbacked the second power play unit for the Oilers. I knew that stuff. And it wasn't because I sat and studied it intentionally. It was just a natural product of what I was doing professionally at the time. So I do what's asked of me. I still have interest in sports, but all right, you need me to be the sports guy? I'll go hardcore sports right now, and we can do that.
I got to let the audience know that this is really cool for me because if you rewind the clock, and I don't want to date both of us, but I will in saying this,
I'm old as hell. You're still the child. Go for
25 years, like I would dial up the night show with you and Jeremy White. And that was like a lot of people go back to like WGR in the 90s or the 2000s, like 90s, especially like Chuck Dickerson. Think about him. Howard Simon was a guy that for years and decades was somebody I really connected with. You and Jeremy, like when I was younger and kind of coming up in the business, I really enjoyed that show. And we became friends, and it was cool for me to work with you in a couple of different ways that you mentioned, and to think about you getting back in the business. And you also said something that it's like, I think you might have said this on your podcast, but like with the state-run radio, the team stuff off of GR, I think it opens the door for another layer to be added to what's already a really cool conglomeration of shows. And like that to me is like there were so many different options back in the day. And the night show was like you guys were young at the time and like talking about all different sports in a different kind of way. And I think that this listen, you don't have to sell me on Tim Graham. He's one of my favorites. Whatever he's doing, I'm usually reading or tuning in. But I think the you two together will be a really cool format.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't mind thinking about the fact that it was a long time ago that I was doing this because it feels like a long time ago. I just finished doing my show and I'm just kind of going through memories. Like I was live on the air on September 11th. Like the world shut down all coverage, but because Coca-Cola was sponsoring the Reuben Brown show, it's like, get out there and talk. Like, dude, I'm devastated like everybody else. Like, yeah, I know. You let everybody else not do a show today. I know. Get out there and talk to Reuben Brown about September 11th on September 11th. And that's obviously, 25 years ago. So it's like, I'm aware that it's been a while. And I did feel like we were doing something different back then. It was a different flavor of what was happening on the radio station at the time. I think Tim and I jumping in, and I want to just touch on the state radio thing. I'm not here to jump up and down and say that wasn't a good show. I love Chris Brown. I love Steve Tasker. I think they're fantastic together on the air, but there is something missing when you know that it's coming from the place where Brandon Beane might be standing over their shoulder, pointing at him just like that. And I've never gotten the sense that they were, editing themselves. And I've been a part of GR when we had the rights to the Sabres. No one ever one time told me you can or cannot say this, but in your mind, I better watch myself here. So it's not as oppressive.
Well, I can talk about this from a first person point of view. I worked at the UFC, and I knew John Jones, gets into a car crash, leaves the scene. We're not writing a breaking news story on UFC.com about that, right? Like there's just certain things when you want to control the messaging that's out there. And so from that perspective, I just think that, listen, you're still going to get Brownie and Tasker. And I do agree with you. I've had both of them on my podcast. I respect them both a ton. Having that in-house option just now opens up another window for another potential show. And that's cool.
Well, and I think of it the same way with UB. There is a way that I talk about the UB Bulls when I'm doing their broadcast. I got on their plane and I'm in wherever I'm in
All state.
Yeah, right. I'm in Muncie, Indiana, and we're talking about the game, and the conversation that's happening on the air is a little bit different than the conversation that's happening during the breaks, perhaps, and then I do the podcast with Scott Wilson, and that's a little bit different than if we were actually on the air. I still know they're paying me. I work for that. I know, but we can be a little more open about maybe some frustrations or whatever. And then if now I'm a guest on your show and I'm going to be a little bit freer to talk about. So there are layers of it. And that's why I don't want it to sound like I'm saying, good, get rid of Chris Brown and Steve Tasker. I love those dudes. I've known Tasker forever. Chris Brown, I went to college with Chris Brown. We started at GR. I mean, he was a year ahead of me or two, but when I came in, like the first person I met was Chris Brown. I'm like, oh, I know this guy. I know he's from campus. Like, this is great. I think they're both excellent at what they do, but it's just different. And that has been PSE programming in that block, and now it's not PSE programming, and it's me. And don't even worry if I'm PSE. Don't worry about me. I'm just coming in to have some fun and entertain. Like, I consider radio to be an entertainment business. In no way am I a journalist. I've got some journalistic instincts that allow me to get information and not quite use it and use it in the way that I want to and whatever. But I'm not trying to break any news ever. Tim Graham is unbelievable in the journalism part of it, and having the two of us together. Plus, he's been a good friend forever. We've worked together a lot. I love the combination. I was so happy to be invited to do it. And then I was like, how do you feel about working with a partner? I was like, fine. And they said, how do you feel about Tim Graham? I was like, way better than fine. Like, this is awesome. And I've been on this sort of whirlwind tour because, honestly, can you imagine what Joe Brady's phone was like when he got hired as the head coach of the Bills? Because all that happened is I got asked to fill in for 2 weeks on a radio station, and my phone has not stopped for the last 48 hours or whatever. This is the second of three interviews I'm doing today just about this, in addition to my own show, all just about dumb me going on the radio to talk to Tim for a couple hours. So it's been fun. I'm excited, but man, it's a new world with all this stuff. I will say this. I would be very intimidated by the cameras now being in the studio at GR, if not for the fact that I just wrapped up 265 episodes of doing this by myself at my house with a camera where I've got to handle all the buttons and all the technological stuff. How peaceful to be able to just go in there and, like, all right, you get the microphone, you get one button, turn it on, turn it off. That's it. You got somebody to talk to. You got somebody else to answer the phones. You got somebody else taking care of the video stuff. It's just, it feels like I'm getting 2 weeks off from doing my show. But instead, like, it feels to everybody else like I got promoted. It feels to me like I'm going on vacation to go hang out with my friend Tim 7 minutes from my house. I love it.
I can't wait to tune in. Starting on Monday, WGR 550. Let's get into some Bill stuff here while I have you, because this has been, honestly, what an interesting backdrop to this 2-week run on WGR, considering what's been happening at One Bills Drive over the last month. I mean, just complete organizational reshuffling. It's a reboot in a lot of different ways. I know it's a coach that's been there in Joe Brady, but I mean, if you want to think about the direction of this organization over the last 9 years, it is they're going in a different direction. And I wanted to get your thoughts on where you feel today as somebody who has watched this team for decades, has been through all the ups and downs of it all, to go, where were you when they fired Sean, and where are you today in terms of feeling like the direction of the organization after we've heard from everybody, some of the pieces are in place, we know the coach, all those kinds of pieces of it. Where do you feel like, where are you at right now in your feelings with this organization?
Over the course of any coach's tenure, there's going to be a sentiment out there every time there's a loss, every time something happens, fire this guy, fire that guy. And, we've heard fire McDermott. He's been here 9 years. We've heard it for 8 of them, probably, or 7. There's always something that comes up. There's some sentiment it's a large fan base, man. A lot of people have opinions and a lot of people can express them. So there's always that sort of undercurrent that exists at all times. I thought it was laughable for the vast majority, really for all of his tenure, until the day that the Ravens fired John Harbaugh. The day that the Ravens fired Harbaugh, it was almost like, oh, you can do that? Like, it hadn't occurred to me, because something needed to be tweaked. Something. I didn't know what it was. Certainly, you don't need a complete overhaul. This is a team that's in the playoffs every year. It just won 5 consecutive divisions. It was better than the team that beat it out for the division this year. It's got the best player in the league. He's a defending MVP. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay next year, even if you just stand pat. But I started thinking about people like you to a certain extent, but more like national. If you're a national football reporter, and we're getting into August, and you're talking about your predictions for the year, how on earth, if the Bills just roll back with this same basic framework, do you say this is their year? Because the world got cute with Mahomes is out, and Lamar is out, and Burrow's out, and clearly this is Josh Allen's year. I was like, I don't know. I mean, but people wanted to just put that on the Bills. how does any self-respecting reporter who probably said those words, like, oh, those guys are out of the way, clearly it's Josh Allen's year, how do you then in August say, all right, I know I was wrong about that, but I think this is the Bills' year, without something changing, some major piece? And it could be as simple as a free agent or a draft pick or something, but something had to switch. Didn't occur to me that it could be the coach until Harbaugh was out. And then you see Tomlin out. Like, the Steelers and Tomlin could break up. Like, I guess it is possible here. And then they lost the game. And then we got through Sunday. And then I woke up on Monday and it's unfair to use the word shocked, but I thought we were through it. And they were, everything was going to be fine, and got that news. And my reaction was, wow. It was wow. And then it was okay, because I had the Harbaugh thing not happened, it would not have crossed my mind. It would have blown my mind to wake up to find that news. But instead, I was just like, oh, all right, well, this will be interesting. And of course, Harbaugh was already off the table, but Harbaugh being let go made me think, well, maybe McDermott out, Harbaugh in. That's a move they could make. But the way that the timing worked out, the Bills won that first game in the playoffs, and then Harbaugh took a job. I felt like Harbaugh was waiting for this opportunity, as one of them. And then he lands with the Giants. But when all is said and done, they didn't blow it up, and that's right. They shouldn't blow it up. But tweaking the vibe at one Bills drive is probably the right move. I don't feel a biological clock ticking on Josh because he's turning 30. That doesn't mean anything to me. I need him healthy. I need him to not take the number of hits that he did this past year. But the entire duration of the Josh Allen Buffalo Bills tenure as prime Allen is the open window. And even when he doesn't have I don't even know when this is, 10 years from now, when his legs don't work the same way that they do. It also could be 2 years from now. I have no idea. But even then, I think what you've got there is a super physically talented guy, but also a guy who, as veterans do, has learned the game a lot more. So I think the window is open even beyond the prime of Josh Allen, but the prime is the time to get it, and tweaking the vibe a little is the right move to me. And that's why I am A-okay with the Brady signing, or Brady hiring, I should say. I thought in his initial press conference, where the part where he just had to speak, I thought, this guy's nervous and panicky, and this is not a good look for a world that seems to be out to get the Bills right now, that they fired the wrong guy and all this stuff. This guy looks amateurish is the wrong word, but he looked like he didn't belong at the podium. He looked like he wasn't comfortable in that suit. And it's because he wasn't comfortable in that suit, because once they got out of the part where he just had to talk and it turned into questions, he went from this to okay. And then you got a sense of the personality that has really attracted so many people to this guy, and why so many people say so many nice things about not just his brain, but his dealing with people, the energy that he brings, and just sort of the community building that he can do. Obviously we have to wait and see, but I'll take offensive coordinator that I know who's never been a head coach over offensive coordinator that I don't know who's never been a head coach. Like, I'm not mad that they didn't wait on Clint Kubiak, if that's the question that, some people. Clint Kubiak took a job at the Raiders. That's fine. I think Brady's the right hire for what I eventually processed as the vibe tweak that's necessary moving into the 2026 season.
The Joe Brady arc is going to be something that I think is really going to be interesting to talk about in hindsight, because you talk about maybe one of the hottest coaches of the last decade when he was coming out of LSU. I mean, like, the trajectory was superstar, like that. It was more, I would say, in the last 5 or 6 years, the only coach that I felt like had a more buzz about them was Ben Johnson when he ultimately got the head coaching job.
Yeah, similar vibe though. That's about right. Maybe my favorite thing has been the reaction of other guys who've been around, like the Justin Jefferson quotes about Joe Brady.
Did you see the clip of Justin Jefferson at the Super Bowl when he had to play that game with a media content creator, and they went through You have to pick. It's like a random draw of a team, and then you got to like fill a team. So like it's like you've probably seen these like videos on TikTok where you got to build your best team, and
Okay.
so it
One
takes
from column
every
A, one from
logo.
column B.
Yeah, yes. So it's going through, and the first logo that appears is the Bills, and you got to pick a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, a defense, a coach, and whatever. And the first thing you think of is like, okay, he's going to take Josh Allen because everybody would take Josh Allen in that scenario. He picked Joe Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson picked Joe Brady. He knows Joe Brady. Goes back to LSU. Has been very complimentary of him. That's the one guy that, like, if you want to talk about a love affair in the fan base, that's been the guy that, could you imagine if you ever got Justin Jefferson? That's another part of this that's interesting. Like, I don't know if the Minnesota Vikings would be willing to move him. I don't know if the financials would necessarily not only work out. I think you can make it work, but is that something you want to invest in and spend that kind of capital in? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I'm all in on the Justin Jefferson idea. I don't know if you've ever watched that wide receiver show that was on Netflix a couple years ago. He was, out of all of those guys, the one that impressed me the most. I mean, Devontae Adams was like, I think it was Deebo Samuel, but Justin Jefferson seems like a guy that, like, a dude that the complete opposite of like the diva receiver.
Well, they replaced Diggs with him. They gave Diggs to Buffalo to get Jeff. I mean, I know it's not exactly that way, but that was an upgrade for them. It was an upgrade for the Bills too. The Bills didn't have either one of them, but it was the right time. It was the right guy, right time for Diggs here. But they were like, we're done with him. Let's replace him with Jefferson. It would be so crazy if that same guy ended up like they just keep feeding us wide receivers from that spot. But I saw a quote from Jefferson where he talked about he doesn't think he would have been a first round pick without Joe Brady. And he doesn't think he would have as good of hands as he does without Joe Brady. Like, I don't even know what kind of sorcery Brady is up to that he has the ability to improve this dude's hands. But he referenced that as like, not just this guy made me understand more, or he improved my skills, is the way that Jefferson talked about him. And he's not the be all end all. They might just be friends, and he pumps him up. Like, if you ask me, you know, what, I don't know. You ask me about one of my friends, I'm going to give you very high praise about one of my friends. It could be just that, but this is an elite player that's crediting the Bills head coach with turning him into an elite player. So I take some comfort in that.
All right. So here's the thing for me, as I've sat here over the last couple of weeks and really this last week, especially, just ruminated on all of this. I think there are two big points of why the Bills almost had to move on from Sean McDermott. And number one, I think it's been made, this point has been made by a couple folks, and it's one that really deserves repeating. You couldn't ask Sean McDermott to step down from being the head coach and just be your defensive coordinator, right? Like, and maybe if you're Terry Pegula, you could go up to him and say, listen, your defense isn't working. You bring in a defensive coordinator that's going to bring in a completely different system. That's never going to work, right? Like, that's creating more problems than I think you're willing to deal with. Moving forward with this defense in a game where your offense turns it over 5 times in Denver, and still they end up scoring 30 points in the game. That's just how unbelievably talented this dude is, that he can have what I think by most accounts would be this horrific performance with the 4 turnovers, but still find a way to lead them to a 30-point game. But your defense still can't get a stop when you need it the most. You needed to turn the page on that. And I also, listen, I don't want to get into the business of standing Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, who's responsible for this, who's responsible for that. I think they both have an equal part of responsibility for the success and the shortcomings over the last 9 years. But what I do think is interesting about the move forward, and this is the other piece of it, is what the scouting process is going to look like now that all of the decisions go through Brandon Beane. Because I would venture to guess that some of the defensive pieces that have been brought into this team in free agency and the draft have come with the stamp of approval of Sean McDermott and working through that specifically for his defense, right? I think it could look a lot different, and maybe divorcing yourself from the need to invest in defensive players, because you want to try to build as good of an offense as you can have. Maybe the new vision for that is something that they're leaning into as an organization.
Did we ever get to see what this defense was supposed to be? Based on injuries this year, when I think about, they were awful. They can't get a stop. They can't do that. All I think about is how dominant Hoyt was.
Yeah.
And he played for 10 seconds. I was like, well, that was the plan. We can't sign 6 of him. We signed 1 of them and he broke. And Ed Oliver was broken very early in the season. And this is not what we thought it would look like. So it's impossible. It's impossible to look at a 53-man roster plus practice squad, plus all the guys that came in and out. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know the number, but did 80 players serve as Buffalo Bills this year? Something like that. Some of it is dumb luck on injury, because when they were put together, they looked right. But eventually it reaches a point where it's year after year. And it always, I think, mentally goes back to 13 seconds. That shouldn't be a career defining moment for McDermott, but I think that has been pinned on him. It is. Yeah. It's been pinned on him, and not being able to overcome that, not being able to put that behind. Like, the Bills' 4 Super Bowl losses are going to go away as soon as they have a Super Bowl win. And getting rid of that 13 seconds thing wasn't just about beating Kansas City. It was about getting to the Super Bowl. I contend it should be about winning the Super Bowl, but that's not really the point. They were not ridding themselves of that. There were ample opportunities to do so. And I think the consecutive playoff losses since then have been less devastating than that one was. But they all just sort of fall under that umbrella of, hey, man, you proved it with 13 seconds, and now you can't get it done. Fair or unfair, this is why a vibe tweak is necessary more than an overhaul. You're right there, but I don't know, man. You can't turn and look and see. It doesn't feel right. If there's a minute left and I look over and McDermott's on the side, it just doesn't feel right. And I need it to feel right, because you've got this tremendous opportunity, having drafted among the best players in the history of the sport, to play quarterback for your team.
It is cold outside right now. I'm not going to try to dress it up in any other way. There was a day 2 or 3 days ago where I was really just questioning all of my life choices as I got into the car at 6:45 in the morning to drive my daughter to school. And it's cold, but you can bring home the cold with freezer savings at Tops Friendly Markets right now. Bring home the cold with freezer savings. Find the coolest way to save this season at Tops. From now through February 28th, every $40 you spend on participating frozen brands earns you $10 back. Fill your freezer with family favorites and earn big rewards while you shop. The more you stock up, the more you save. $10 back for every $40 you spend on participating brands like Snickers ice cream, Klondike, Ben & Jerry's, Smucker's Uncrustables, Drumstick, so many awesome brands. Head over to Tops Friendly Markets today and find out more. We have a question from one of our regular insiders. James asks, how many years does Brandon Beane get to get the Bills to a Super Bowl before Terry Pegula fires him for not getting over the quote-unquote playoff wall? And I think this is a very interesting question, because how it's set up now feels like this is Brandon Beane's show for the foreseeable future. I mean, if you're happy with the level of players that have been drafted and signed over the last couple of years, and that's what Terry seemed to say, it would stand to reason that Brandon Beane has quite a bit of leash here over the next couple of years to build this in his vision with Joe Brady as the head coach. Is there a result this year that would change his standing?
Aside from criminal activity, like something that just from a football standpoint, no, I don't think so. I think Terry Pegula is smart enough to know that he's not running the football team. I mean, he is obviously the owner, but the promotion of Beane, in addition to the firing of McDermott, says, all right, I had to choose. I choose you, and now let's ride this for a while. So I think it's a waste of breath at this point to call for, I mean, say whatever you want, think whatever you want, but like to call for and expect action on Beane being removed. I think it would take something incredibly drastic. Like I'm joking about criminal stuff, things off the field. You never know what's going to go on behind the scenes. But from a just football standpoint, wins, losses, how the team looks, how they carry themselves, I don't think there's a conversation to even be had about when Brandon Beane is out as the GM of the team. And I'm okay with that. The stability that Beane and McDermott together brought has been tremendous for this team, for this area. And they tweaked it again. I keep using the same word, but if they blew it up and Beane and McDermott were both gone on the same day, I mean, I'd still find a way to go, well, you've got Josh Allen, so it should be okay. But there would be such a break in the vibe, because I don't think anyone would argue the chemistry that the team has. Just other teams don't carry themselves in the way that the Bills do. You might find it here and there, but they've just been so demonstrably in love with each other that it's carried them through. It's why Diggs just suddenly had to go. He came in and helped out, and as soon as it was a problem from I keep using vibe, I keep using tweak, but the vibe was gone with Diggs. And I've got a whole theory on how that all went down, but that's such old news that it doesn't matter. As soon as they saw sort of a fly in the ointment, like, you're gone, we'll move on. We're better off without you. You know, sending him to Houston, they showed us with the financial commitment they made to getting rid of him. They said, it's addition by subtraction. We're a better team if you're not here. Get out. And until further notice, that's kind of the approach. I assume that there's continuity with Brady being there, and that the overall, what is the word I'm looking for that everybody uses about chemistry? There's a word everybody says, and then other people make fun of it, and I can't think of the word because we're just doing this live.
Continuity?
But it's not continuity. It's not. Let's just say chemistry.
Okay.
The team chemistry that has existed under McDermott and Beane has grown to the point where it is assumed around the NFL. When people think of the Bills, they think of stability and continuity and the other word that I can't think of. And I think that's and yes, it's been talent, and yes, it's been the quarterback, but people want to be here. People want to come back here. I always appreciate the Shaq Lawsons and the Jordan Phillips and the Gabe Davises that are like, yeah, I was out there. I don't like it out there. I want to come back here. Like, there's something to that that I think you maintain by keeping one, even though you get rid of the other. And here's the other one. Had the Bills chosen McDermott stays and Beane's got to go, that's a much bigger puzzle to solve, because now who is advising Terry Pegula on who the new general manager is going to be? Because he's not going to just go willy-nilly. He's not going on a yacht with Rex Ryan anymore. I think he learned from that. So who's coming in as the GM that's going to solve, we can't get through the final minute of a playoff game? I don't think you can do that. So it all feels right to me. It's been weird. Like I said, it was a surprise when McDermott was fired, but you start processing it and it's like, all right, they're going to roll it back out there. They're going to look like the Bills. And while I feel bad for how it went down for McDermott, I get it. I think they're going to look like the same old Bills, maybe with a little bit more, it's not swagger, but it's, freedom to be themselves. He talked about it a lot there. Joe Brady versus Sean McDermott, it almost feels like dad's out of town, but the cool uncle's here. So he's still my supervisor, but I saw Sean McDermott smile, 4 times in 9 years. And Joe Brady just seems like a better hang. And maybe that's what they need, is to hang out at one Bills drive and kind of feel like they're not being supervised by dad. And McDermott's always very serious and very buttoned up, and no knock on it. It is what has given them this consistent, I'm going to say excellence, because I don't have the word for just under excellence in like loaded and ready to go, but they have been a consistently top tier team for the duration of this run. And I think they have to be assumed as such. I looked at the odds to win the Super Bowl, and they're like 4th right now. And that's with a new head coach. I don't think anybody's worried. Like, how many times during a game or after a game did you think, Bills are sure lucky they had Sean McDermott today? I think big picture, they've been very lucky to have him for the duration. But I can count on one hand the times where during his entire tenure said, you know what happened today? The Bills outcoached the opponent. And it just didn't happen. So let's try something new.
It's so funny that you bring that up because I've been thinking too about his legacy, and 13 seconds is the easy legacy, right? But the other part of his legacy is one that it's the worst kind for a fan base. He is somebody that is at the forefront of some really important game plans, over the last couple of seasons, right? Like if you go back to 2019, when Lamar Jackson was just coming into his power. Remember, the Bills played them late in the season, and the Bills lost that game. But Lamar, even though he had 3 touchdowns, was just really just less effective in that game. Like from a running perspective, the way that the defense played against him, so much so that the Titans beat them in the playoffs using the blueprint that Sean McDermott's defense set out in that regular season game. And then all this made this year about Drake May and what the Bills did in the second matchup against them and how Seattle was maybe able to tap into that for the Super Bowl. It's like, all right, man, you're at the forefront of some of these ideas, but it's these other teams that are getting the fruits of your labor. And that's just an awful way to kind of have your legacy be remembered.
Yeah, setting them up so somebody else can knock them down is not ideal as the head coach and the guy who's in charge of the defense. So, yeah, his legacy to me, the other thing that I picture that locker room as they're watching the Bengals beat the Ravens to get to the playoffs, and those are the opposite ends. 13 seconds, and that was him just patching it together. They weren't supposed to go to the playoffs. That wasn't the year to break it. That was the year to just kind of warm up. They cut a bunch of Watkins, all that stuff. They reshaped the roster. They got rid of the things they didn't want. They started heading in the right direction, and things just broke their way. And, I picture him and Kyle Williams more than anybody else on that day in the locker room. And those are the images I'll be left with. Or that one, like, okay, we fixed this 16-year problem, and then we got it to the precipice, but never quite there. So the high end is I brought you back to the playoffs, and we're going to go all the time. I know they missed Josh's rookie year, but other than that, it's an assumption now that the Bills are a playoff team. And it used to be an assumption that they were not. And we cross our fingers every year and say New England's not as good as as people are making them out to be. And this, they added this piece or that piece, and we could do it. None of it happened. Now they're in that category of if the Bills miss the playoffs, that's crazy. The Bills missing the playoffs next year, to me, it would be as crazy as the Chiefs missing it this year. That's the level of franchise they have become. And but you get into the Schottenheimer era where it's just like, all right, cool. We lost in the AFC Championship game again, or we lost in the divisional round again. These guys aren't going to be here forever, and just attitude, man. That's it. I feel bad for him. By all accounts, great guy. But it was time. It was time for Western New York deserved something new, deserved a tweak. Not a blow up, but a tweak. And I'm sorry that he's the victim of it. And thank you for your service. You did a great job. But when all is said and done, it was time to move on. And I'm okay with that. And I hope it works out great. But just rolling back in the same way and expecting a different result, while entirely possible, it was entirely possible that Sean McDermott stays and Josh Allen stays, obviously, and Brandon Beane stays, and they go make a good couple draft picks and make a good couple free agent signings and swing one trade, and they're the best team in football next year, and they win 15 games in the regular season and the 1 seed, and it's the new stadium, and they go to the Super Bowl. That was entirely possible. Tough sell, though. It's a tough sell to my brain, and I don't even mean from like a marketing standpoint. We went through through that era where like they signed Terrell Owens. Like, this is awesome. And then you sit there like, wait, what is this actually? This isn't anything. This is nothing. They're selling tickets. They sold me tickets. I was going to be out on season tickets, and then T.O. signed, and then Jeremy's like, you're going to bail the year that they get T.O.? Like, all right, I'll go one more year. Fine. You talk me into it. This isn't that. This isn't marketing. This is reality. They look around the room. They go, we're almost there. What can we do here to make the change? It's not that different from when the Sabres fired Lindy Ruff. It wasn't a disrespectful thing. It was just like, we've exhausted all options here, and something has to change. And I don't think you're the problem, but it's almost a mercy killing at that point. You can tell the respect that still existed because he's back as the head coach, and they're doing great this year. That still exists, but I don't know. It reaches a point where like, yeah, this
But
is
was
a
the respect
C
there?
minus team, and I need to be A plus.
Was
What's
the
that?
respect there? Was the respect there?
I think
Like
it
it
was.
felt.
I think they were letting him go. I think they were helping him out by setting him free. Like, you don't need to be here anymore. It's not. We're gonna keep trying stuff. They were wrong. I mean, they cycled through how many coaches before they landed back on Lindy Ruff, and now
Right.
they're
No, no,
back.
no. I mean on Sean. It felt like in the last month since all this happened, from Brandon and Terry, the fan base is. I feel like the reaction has been there's been a lack of respect with how
Well, they
little.
fired him. I mean, they fired him, and that press conference did not go well, and they shouldn't let Terry at a podium any more than they have to. But once in a while, you make a move like this, and he's got to be there. I mean, you just look no further than what a disaster it was perceived to be the day that they talked about McDermott being let go, and what it was like when Joe Brady was hired, and they're like, you know what, Terry, why don't you sit over here, and we're going to keep the cameras pointing that way, and you go here, and we understand it's your team, but let's not have you talk anymore. I think, yeah, it's disrespect. It comes off as disrespectful because Pegula is just not good in that setting. Doesn't make him a bad person. It's just they should keep him away from microphones and cameras as often as possible. Prepared statement, cool. Then get out of the way. No further questions. Talk to Brandon Beane. Was anything less comfortable? You were in that room, I'm sure, than Beane trying to answer a question and Terry Pegula jumping in over the top of him, specifically on the Keon Coleman stuff. But
Yeah.
it's like, he's got this. He's good at this. He's the talker. You're making us look worse. So I don't think it was disrespect. I mean, they fired him, so that's disrespectful. But I thought it was handled okay if Terry was under control.
I'm headed to the combine in 11 days, 10 days. And Amtrak right now is making travel planning less stressful with flex fares. You can get different departure dates and rides out the wazoo right now over to Amtrak.com. Last minute schedule changes can be a headache, but with Amtrak's new, more affordable flex fares, you can adjust your trip without worry. If a concert gets postponed, someone gets sick, or a business meeting gets rescheduled, you can modify your booking without any cancellation or change fees. Head over to Amtrak.com for more details. All right, last thing before I let you get out of here. A really good question from Gerald. We know the opponents that will be coming to the new Highmark Stadium next year. Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, Jets, Chiefs, Chargers, Bears, Lions, and Ravens. What is your hope for the first opponent in the new Highmark Stadium?
I was in my head preparing if I could only go to one game, which one would it be? That's what I was getting ready for. So, okay, I wasn't
well, now you're going to have to answer that as well. But let's start with
got that one ready.
What we think the opener should be. To me, it's funny because if you take the totality of the Bills organization, would you probably say that the Dolphins are probably the biggest rival, quote unquote, of the Bills? You could make an argument for the Patriots, although it was a dominant one-sided rivalry for the majority of that era. And it just felt like the Dolphins were, even over the last couple of years, I feel like that rivalry kind of got sparked up again. I think one of those two teams as the first one makes the most sense to me. Or the Chiefs, the only thing with the Chiefs is, will Patrick Mahomes be playing in that game? And so maybe you don't want that to be the first one. I don't know.
Maybe I do because I want the Bills to win every game.
Okay, there you
go. Totally opposed to that. I actually went a totally different direction, and I went out of conference and started thinking, I know they didn't make the playoffs this year, but man, that Bills-Lions game a couple of years ago was so good and so fun. And that was the one that I gravitated toward. But I don't know, is it different because you're opening the new stadium? Like, does it have to be extra fanfare? It has to be a divisional team like that. I don't know all of the data points that go into calculating the schedule. But
they opened against the Chargers.
I feel like every time it's the Jets, that's lame.
Ago.
Like,
yeah, the Jets is the worst.
Whenever they land on the Jets, that's just like, Jets games are. I know they don't win all the time, but those feel like just 2 weeks off, at least in the last 10 years or so. Dolphins, I don't want them. I want them to have to deal with Stone, so it's not that. Is it as simple as just saying bring on the Patriots right away? Because if you're going to ask me what game do I want to go to, it's the Patriots game. I need I want the Patriots curb stomped. I want everything that just happened this year to have, I want lights shining on the same stuff that it was shining on this past Sunday when they were like, what are they doing here? And it's like, yeah, right. What are they doing here? I always think about just my friend in Boston and his ability to this year be like, oh, that was cute. Your little 5 AFC East championship run. But sorry, too bad you guys didn't get it done during the window of Josh Allen. I'm just like, I like Drake May. I'm impressed by him.
I'm really concerned about Drake May and his ability to come back from this.
Right. So let's have the next game that he plays be in Orchard Park. That's.
I think we've arrived at it. That's got to be the game.
Yeah, let's see.
Especially like now, do they have to play?
Oh my God, it's such the answer. This is why we have
so this is the perfect situation. Is if they open against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl rematch, and then week 2 is the home opener for the Bills in Highmark Stadium. That could be like a 2-pronged, like New England just stomp fest if that ends up working out the way you hope.
Yeah, I want the Patriots to win fewer than 5 games next year and just be punched.
See, I think Vrabel's too good of a coach.
I was just going to say that. I don't believe that to be, super possible, but I don't think that was they were fine. It was the kind of team that goes to the playoffs and loses in the first round, and you don't think about him, and then you're like, oh, Drake May in his 3rd year, he might be ready to go. He was awful in the playoffs, and the swing between the hype machine going up and up and up on him just barely missing being the MVP of the league, which is an absurdity to have him in that conversation. How do you have coach of the year? And I know he didn't get MVP, but coach of the year and MVP on the same team. Coach of the year is an award that goes to the team. We're like, hey, how'd you guys get here? He's like, it was me. I fixed it. We were broken and I came in and we're good. If he's an MVP level quarterback, then Vrabel's not the coach of the year to me, and vice versa. And I think one is right, and it's Vrabel. I think they solidified that with Mayo out and Vrabel in. They're like, all right, sorry about that. Can we start over? And they fixed it immediately. And I do, prior to what we've seen in the playoffs, I had been saying I'm impressed by May. Like I think years to come, we found a rival for Josh. I think Josh is going to be better, but he's there. But yeah, I don't know how do you recover from all this? He's got a whole offseason to do it, but he will not be discussed remotely in the same way on a national scale at the start of the season as he would have been had they just been eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. They had just been knocked out, even if he had a bad game, and they were gone. But everyone saw it. Everyone remembers it. It's the last game everybody saw, and it's Drake May stinks is in everybody's head, and you got to fight out of it because I don't think he stinks, but he stunk.
The Patriots 2026 schedule, as I have this up here in front of me,
so
at Buffalo, at Chicago,
loss,
at Detroit,
loss,
at Kansas City,
win,
at Los Angeles Chargers,
loss,
at Miami Dolphins,
win,
at New York Jets,
loss, win. I mean win. Sorry, I hear the word Jets. I hear the word Jets, and loss just comes out of my head, but I meant the other way. And so I'm at 3
Jacksonville,
loss,
at Seattle,
loss,
home to Pittsburgh.
I'll give him a win.
Minnesota,
I'll give him a win.
Green Bay,
loss,
Vegas,
win 6,
Denver,
tie,
Jets, Dolphins, Bills are the rest of the 3 home.
Win, so loss. They're at 7.5 wins.
7.5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's what comes with what will end up being a first place schedule, and it's a whole different ball game. I will say the Bills. They go to Houston, Rams, Packers, Broncos. I mean, they got some tough road games too.
Well,
Patriots.
Honestly, their schedule looks a lot like hey, shouldn't that team have been in the playoffs? That's the group that they have.
Right.
You know, the way I was talking about the Lions earlier, like that, the Chiefs, like the teams that we assume will be there, but just weren't quite. So they tweak a little bit. And I expect a lot of those teams to be a lot better than the Patriots next year too. Next year is about obviously the Bills. But I want the reputation of the Patriots to go, which it did this past Sunday, but I would like more of it, please.
Every Tuesday night, you're getting a little wild and crazy.
So
that's what I hear these days.
I am. It's very exciting. So we're doing this thing called Brain Vault. It's a live trivia event. So I've been playing trivia in bars for years. You know, you go out, you sit down, you hang out with your friend, you get a pitcher of beer, and you know they ask you 20 questions, you write them down, you take them up. But I also I'm just into entertainment. Part of it is doing this show that I've been doing by myself in my house. You're doing the same thing. Like you kind of get into it, like the production of it and all that. And I've been looking at trivia going, this should be a stage show. This should be way better. This should have a panel. This should have music and lights. And I found this venue in the Kaz, which is in South Buffalo. Are you familiar with the Kaz? Have you been to the Kaz?
I've never been.
The Kaz is an old Art Deco bank. It was built in like 1921 that has been converted to a music space. It was converted. The owner is an artist and a musician, and just he's got a vision. You walk in there, and I walked in there and looked around and went, okay, we need to do something with this stage. What can we do? So we've done 2 episodes so far. The 3rd one is coming up this Tuesday. I would like to formally invite you to be a part of it. I'm on stage, Tim Graham, and this has nothing to do with the radio part. Like Tim and I are going to work together on the radio, but he also agreed to just be a part of this thing. So I host it. The first week we had a panel of Tim and Jeremy White and Greg Bauk, and we had a bunch of fun. Last week was just me and Tim, but I would like to add somebody, and I am formally inviting you, Matt Parrino, to be on our panel for episode 3 of Brain Vault. Tickets available at thecazbuffalo.com. Will you join us on stage, Matt Parrino, and be a part of Brain Vault episode 3?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Let's go.
This Tuesday night at the Kaz.
Tuesday night at the Kaz. We'll talk afterwards. I'll give you full details on all of it. I get a little fancier. I get a little dressed up. You don't need to do that. You just show up and be you. And what I tell everyone.
Are you going to be in a tux?
I'm not going to be in a tux. People always ask. No, I'm not even going to be in a tie, but I'm not going to be in a hoodie. You know, I'm just, I wore a, I've
like
worn
a quarter zip. You're going to wear a quarter zip. You're going to be real spiffy.
No, I'm not going to, no. I'm going sport coat. I've been going sport coat.
Okay.
And honestly, I wore the same sport coat twice, but with different stuff. I might go suit this week. But no tie. We'll see. But I'm the host. I'm a little bit fancier. You just come up. I told Tim, dress one step up from going out to Elmo's. Like not quite, you're not going to a wedding, but you're not going out for wings at 1 a.m. Like just, somewhere in there. I told Jeremy the same thing. Bauk, I'll tell you as well. But tickets are on sale at thecazbuffalo.com. It involves, a lot of this comes from me watching Kill Tony. And I don't know if you're familiar with Kill Tony and the format there, but it is a host on stage with panelists, and then there's interaction with the crowd. So people put their names into the vault, and we'll do rounds of trivia just out in the crowd. But then at the end of a round, we pull a name out and somebody comes up on stage. No more phones, no more friends, just you on the stage with the lights facing trivia questions and a panel of people there to either cheer you on or make you feel dumb. And you don't have to go on stage just for being there. You can come for the show of it, or you can put your name into the vault. You might get pulled. You might come up there. You might win a prize. You might get made fun of. You might wind up on YouTube. You never know what's going to happen. But episode 3 looks like it's going to be the best one yet, because we're, like everything else, we're building it. And I've learned a couple things from the first 2 episodes that we've straightened out in time for number 3, and it's going to be the best one we've done yet. And we're going to have Matt Parrino, which also makes it the best one we've had yet. So we'll see you Tuesday.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of live events, we will be live the end of the month at Wingnuts for our Combine wrap-up show. That is going to be Saturday. I got to pull up my little trusty calendar here. Isn't it annoying when you go to pull up a calendar, like Google Calendar, for instance, and it pulls up to a date in 2022, and you have to scan the way terrible to 2026 to find the actual date that I'm looking for, which is some
piece of software that I don't even remember what it is, but it always thinks that it's 1969. Like, how did that wind up in Windows 11 or whatever I'm using? I don't even know.
I might have just closed it and forgot. I did. I closed it and forgot. I'm just kidding.
Well, I was going to try to do the math. here because I know that I am doing a show on the 16th, and that's with Tim. And then, so if we add to that, we would go to 23 would be the next Monday.
Right.
So 4 Tuesday, 5 Wednesday, 6 Thursday, 7 Friday,
and then
8th.
Saturday,
Be the 28th.
Yes. So February 28th. Thank you for that. Live at Wingnuts, Millersport Highway, 1402 Millersport Highway. Come out, hang with myself, Ryan Talbot. We would be talking about everything that I learned at the combine, be taking your mock draft questions, everything like that. We're going to have a great time there. Dude, thanks for coming on today, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for saying yes to the thing on Tuesday. We're going to start seeing each other a lot in the next couple of weeks here, I think.
I like it. All right. Take care, everybody.